So viewers, yes, this is Ranjana man and you are watching. Yes, it's mine as well as your channel. So this time, after countless requests, I have come to this poem, The Death of a Naturalist. I know I don't need to tell you what I am going to speak on or what I am going to explain today because the thumbnail says it all, but still it is customary. So the death of a naturalist. Whenever, you must have noticed that whenever I teach something, I always advise you to read the previous page where something about the author and his works are mentioned. Because there are some lines which help you in framing your answers. So in this one also, I always advise you. So here you have in page 17, there are some lines which might help you to frame your answers. So Seamus Heaney, he is the poet of this poem, and the last paragraph you will find a little word which you can add to your answers. Among his best known works is Death of a Naturalist, 1966. That means he wrote this poem in 1966. His major published volume. It consists of 34 short poems. So this is one of the poems. The Death of a Naturalist is actually a volume where there are 34 poems and this is one of them. And yes, what is it related to? It is largely concerned with childhood experiences and the formulation of adult identities, family relationships and rural life. Death of a Naturalist. So this poem which you have in your syllabus, it is the second of the collection. Out of the 34, this is the second one. Details the exploits of a young boy collecting frog spawn from a flax dam. The narrator remembers everything he saw and felt at those times. At which time? When he was a young boy. He then remembers his teacher telling him all about frogs in a section that speaks volumes about childhood innocence. Yeah, as he proceeds with the poem, he talks about what his teacher had told about these frogs, what his father frog called, what his mother frog or the female frog called, and all that. And later when he makes a visit in his adult years, does he have that same excitement? No, he gets repelled. So finally we hear about a trip to the flax dam that went wrong. When did it go wrong? When he had reached his adulthood. He feels threatened by the grown-up frogs. His interest in nature has gone. And that is why the poet has named this The Death of a Naturalist. So yes, he had been a naturalist in his childhood when he was innocent, but that naturalist dies within him when he reaches adulthood, and the frogs, they seem to be so threatening. So all the excitement and all that dies within him. So that is why the poet has named it The Death of a Naturalist. So now let's continue with the poem. Yes, but before I start with a line-wise explanation of the poem, you know what's coming. If you have not subscribed to my channel up till now, please do. And don't forget to press the like button. Because I feel many views but like buttons are comparatively not much. So please do. It is a reward to my efforts. You all write such nice things, but you all forget to press the like button. Anyway, so let's continue. Yeah, so we are back. And now, as I told you, the line-wise explanation. All year, the flax dam festered in the heart of the townland. Green and heavy-headed flax had rotted there, weighed down by huge swords. So what is actually a flax dam? You might be wondering. So a flax dam is a man-made pond. These are not the natural ponds. It is a man-made pond. Why? For soaking the Flax seeds. Nowadays though, yes, flax seeds, many of you all go and buy from the shopping malls and all that. Those flax seeds, they say it is very good for health and all that. I don't know. I had some rotting in my house also. My son had got it. So this flax dam, like we store water in a dam, so this flax dam is for storing flax. Soaking flax plants. Located where? Where is this flax dam situated? It is in the middle of a small town, or could be in a village, rural area. This is very similar to jute. So those jute, jute plants are uprooted and then they are put in small, I wouldn't say pond, but they are made to rot in water, and then the jute is separated from the plant and all that. So flax dam, in that also the flax is allowed to rot, and then it might be separated from the flax plant. So what happens? For many years, this flax has been lying there rotting. And why do you use this flax plant? Why do you use this? This is said to be used for linen. So this flax has been rotting there, lying there rotting. And it becomes heavy. Why? Because it is lying in the water or the waters of the flax dam for such a long time. So it has become decayed or rotten, and as a result it has become heavy and weighed down by large pieces of soil. Daily it sweltered in the punishing sun. Bubbles gargled delicately. Blue bottles wove a strong gauze of sound around the smell. So every day, what happened? When the rays of the sun, in the daytime, the rays of the sun as if punished the flax dam. That means it got very hot on account of the powerful rays of the sun. The sun's rays falling on the flax dam made the water very hot. So the poet talks of the bubbles, gargled delicately. So the bubbles formed on the surface of the flax dam, and the buzzing sound of the blue bottle flies were to be heard. Why? Because the blue bottle flies, they got attracted by the rotting flax. These type of flies seem to be attracted by all those rotten things. There are some type of flies which get interested or which get attracted by rotten things. So the rotting flax attracted the blue bottles. Blue bottle is a type of insect or a fly, and it makes a buzzing sound. And what else were to be found in the flax dam? There were dragonflies, spotted butterflies, but best of all was the warm, thick slobber of frog spawn that grew like clotted water in the shade of the banks. So the poet, as a child, when he made a visit to the flax dam, these are the things he observed. The blue bottles, and then not only blue bottles, there were dragonflies. So all the different types of insects which were to be found in the flax dam. Dragonflies, spotted butterflies. But which one did he like the best? So what he liked best was the warm, thick slobber of frog spawn that grew like clotted water in the shade of the banks. So the thing which attracted his attention most, the thing which in which he was interested the most, was the frog spawn or the frog eggs of the frog. And how did he find these eggs? They grew in the shade along the side of the bank. At the side of the bank, the frog spawns were found. What type? Not like the eggs of the birds, the eggs which you eat, not that type of eggs. So they were thick things, thick slobber, warm, thick slobber. So these were thick, slimy things, just like water, as if water had clotted. They seemed as if the water had clotted, but no, it was the frog spawn. Thick slimy thing, looking as if the water had clotted, but it was not the water clotting, it was the frog spawn which was found at the edge of the bank. So this was what interested the poet in his childhood. So he would visit this place often. Why? Here, every spring, I would fill jam potfuls of the jellied specks to range on window sills at home, on shelves at school, and wait and watch until the fattening dots burst into nimble swimming tadpoles. So he is a naturalist at this age. So what did he do? Every spring, he would come and he would bring jars with him and fill the jars with the frog spawn or the frog eggs, and he would put them in different places. He would place them in the windowsills at his house, he would put them in the shelves in his school, and then what would he do? Why would he collect these frog spawns? Because he wanted to see the frog spawns burst into tadpoles. So he would wait and watch till the eggs matured into tadpoles. So yes, he is a naturalist waiting for the eggs to mature and burst forth into tadpoles. Tadpoles is the first stage of the frog. Yes, it is from the eggs the first stage. They don't come out as the frogs we see normally. And now he tells something which he had been told in school by his teacher about the frogs. Miss Waltz would tell us how the daddy frog was called the bullfrog, and how he croaked, and how the mammy frog laid hundreds of little eggs, and this was frog spawn. So he's explaining about the frogs. So he seems to be having quite a good knowledge of the frogs. And how did he get this knowledge? From his teacher. His teacher, Miss Waltz, would tell us. So the lessons he had learned, he remembered everything. His teacher, Miss Waltz, had told him about the life of the frogs. She had told him that what the father or the male frog was called. The father frog was called the bullfrog. It made a croaking sound. And the mother frog, she laid hundreds of eggs, and this is what was called the frog spawn. You could tell the weather by frogs too, for they were yellow in the sun and brown in the rain. So he got a lot of knowledge about frogs from his teacher, and he says that the frogs indicated the weather. So if you found them, if you found them yellow, that means yes, it would be sunlight, or during sunlight they were yellow, and during rain their color changed to brown. So up till now everything is fine. He is enjoying himself as a naturalist in his childhood. But several years later, when he makes a visit to the flax dam, he is an adult then. And does he have the same feeling, the same excitement, the same interest? No. Just see. Then one hot day, when fields were rank with cow dung in the grass, the angry frogs invaded the flax dam. I ducked through hedges to a coarse croaking that I had not heard before. So what happened? Something very different. He experiences something very different from the visits he made to the flax dam in his childhood. So the fields around the flax dam, they were scenting of cow dung. The cows must have done potty there. So yes, the cow dung gave a bad smell. So the fields were full of the smell of cow dung. And what happened? At that time, the frogs, they took control of the flax dam. So many from the frog spawn, so many frogs had come and had taken birth into tadpoles and then matured into frogs, and now they were quite powerful enough to invade the flax dam. So the poet feels a bit shocked by the aggression and the croaking sound made by the frogs. He had never heard them croak in that time he was small. And he had not, and maybe he did not have this experience, because whenever he came, at that time most probably the frog spawn had not matured into eggs. He had matured into frogs. He had only got the frog spawn only. But now when he visits, there are mature, complete frogs there. And what are they doing? They are aggressively croaking. And this sound is very new to him. He feels frightened, he feels shocked, he feels frightened. He had never seen the grown-up frogs and their croakings. He had heard about them, the bullfrog and the mammy frog laying frog spawn and all that. But he had never experienced the fierce, aggressive croaking sound of the frogs. So now what happens? The air was thick with a bass chorus. Right down the damp grass, bellied frogs were caught on swords. Their loose necks pulsed like sails. So the air or the atmosphere was filled with the croaking of the frogs. That means there was not just one frog croaking, quite a few, because they had invaded the flax dam. So a number of frogs, and they were croaking in such a way that the atmosphere was filled with the croaking sound of the frogs. And he remembers the scene very clearly. What had he seen? That frogs with big stomachs, they were sitting on the turfs, and their throats as if seemed to be trembling when they croak. Like the sails of a ship, when the wind fills them up, how do they look? They get billowed, they get filled. When the air fills them, fills the sails of a ship of the past, or the big boats, and they had sails, and the winds billowed them. So how did they look? They looked puffed up. So the throat of the frogs also seemed to be puffed up when they croaked. When they made croaking sounds, their throats got puffed up. Just what a nice simile. Like the sails when they get filled with the wind. Some hawked. The slap and plop were obscene threats. Some sat poised like mud grenades, their blunt heads parting. And not only that, the croaking is not enough. The movements also is very repulsive. He finds the movements also quite unnerving or repulsive. What happens? Some of them were croaking, and some of them were hopping, jumping around. And when they jumped in the water, what happened? They made loud, threatening sounds. Some, they sat in such a way, it seemed as if they were like mud grenades. That means grenades as if made of mud. They were covered with mud, and when they sat, they seemed as if that they were mud grenades. So the sounds which the frogs made seems to be quite humorous, because he says that their blunt heads parting. So this is a bit obscene word, but parting you don't do with your mouth or with your head, but the sound which came out from their mouth, it seemed as if they were farting. So it is quite a sickening scene. So how does he react to it? How does the poet react to it? I sickened, turned, and ran. The great slime kings were gathered there for vengeance, and I knew that if I dipped my hand, the spawn would clutch it. So he feels disgusted. Not only that, he turns away and runs from the place. It has made him sick. I sicken. So he leaves the dam and runs away. So all the excitement of his childhood vanishes, because now he's an adult, and this scene is not at all interesting to him. And what does he call the frogs? He says the frogs, he refers to the frogs as the great slime kings, because they are covered with slime, and the way they are sitting in a very royal manner on the flax dam. So he calls them the great slime kings. So it seems that they have come to take their control, or take take their authority over the flax dam. They have also as if come to take revenge. Why? Because he had been collecting, when he was a young boy, he would come and collect the frog spawns and put them in jars and keep them in the window shelves or in a window sills or school shelves. So as if they were wanting to take revenge on him. Why have you taken our frog spawn and gone away? So as if they were demanding of him. So he was afraid now. He felt that if I touch the frog spawn, it will stick to my hand. So yes, as a child it didn't matter to him. But now that he is a grown-up person, he realizes that this is nature. This is a mature understanding, and he is afraid of it. I knew that if I dip my hand, the spawn would clutch it. That means it wouldn't be that easy. And now he doesn't enjoy the idea of the spawn getting stuck to his hand. As a child, he liked it. So, a transformation from childhood innocence to adulthood maturity. We can say that also. So naturally this poem is in two parts. The first part is about the childhood, his innocence, and he thinks of himself as a naturalist, and the things which he enjoys, all the different insects and all that in the flax dam. But once he is an adult, these very things repel him. And instead of seeing the frog spawn and the insects, he rather sees the croaking of the frogs, and their aggression and their movements become more important to him. And he gets repelled, disgusted, and he runs away from it. Those very things which that flax dam had attracted his attention, but now he feels repelled by it. So we can say that this poem can be a journey from childhood innocence to a mature understanding of nature. So this can be that the dam, in the dam, which is the thing that attracts his attention the most? The insects, yes, they are there, but the thing which attracts his attention the most in his childhood is the frog spawn or the eggs of the frog. And how does he describe them in the beginning? Warm, thick slobber. That time he finds it quite interesting to hold it in his hand, and as an adult he feels it will stick to his hand. And this frog spawn, he loved watching the frog spawns burst into tadpoles, and that is why he would collect, whether in school or at home. He would just wait and watch. Why? Because he wanted, means the idea of the tadpoles, the frog spawn transforming into tadpoles, was something which attracted him, which interested him. But now, as an adult, the sounds of the croaking of the frog, that time he had seen the spawn, the earliest stage of the frog, And when he comes back there as an adult, that frog spawn only has changed into a mature adult frog and is full of aggression, full of vengeance. So the transformation of the frogs is also there, or the transition of the frog spawn to frogs, adult frogs, and they're invading the flax dam. And the croaking sound, when he feels, I haven't heard it before. So those very things which had made him feel attracted, they are repelling him. So naturally, he finds the frogs which had once fascinated him, and now he considers them to be dangerous. He calls them mud grenades. So this world has, the familiar world of the child has now changed. It seems to be threatening. The flax dam was a familiar place, but now it seems to be unnerving, threatening, dangerous. And the one, at one time the frog spawn which had caught his attention, now they become mud grenades. He calls them slime kings. So how do you think that is the poem end? So the poem ends in a dangerous note, you can say. Why? Because a threatening note, I wouldn't say dangerous, but in a threatening note where we find a change taking place or a transition from the innocence to a mature understanding of the realities of life, realities of nature. In his childhood, everything about nature fascinated him. But as an adult, the mature understanding makes him realize the harsh realities also of nature. Nature is not always so pleasant as he had thought in his childhood. That is why we can say The Death of a Naturalist is a very appropriate title. So what are the various themes on which the poem explores? They are transition from innocence to mature understanding of adulthood. This is the main theme of the poem. So the first stanza is about the innocence of childhood, and the second stanza is the loss of innocence. So there is a sharp contrast. First half, second half. And the tone of the poem, yes. In the first stanza we find that there is a sort of nostalgia as he thinks of the flax dam. As he thinks of the flax dam with the different types of insects there. But the thing which fascinates him most, everything about nature is fascinating. The blue bottles and the dragonflies, the spotted butterflies, everything attracts his attention, but the most is the frog spawn. So there is a sort of, he finds sort of comfort when he visits the flax dam. But that very comfort disappears in the second stanza when he finds the frogs to be threatening. Their croaking seems to frighten him. So he feels terrified, so terrified that he doesn't stay there anymore, he runs away. Why? Because he feels if I touch the frog spawn, it will stick to my hands. So this is about the poem. And if you have some queries, you can always write in the comment box. I try to answer, but it is not possible all the time. But still, so have a happy week ahead, and I bid you goodbye.